Shanti. Welcome to this new podcast series, Cycles of Infinity. And this is going to be a special podcast series. In this particular series, we will talk about the interdisciplinary approach and we will touch base different realms of different domains, especially science, spirituality, quantum physics, and history as well. And moreover, in this podcast, we will also leverage some of the functionalities of ChatGPT. So, with this objective in our mind, let's kick off this series. So, I'm your host, Dr. Ankur, and today we have the esteemed speaker with us to take this discussion forward. So, Dr. Sudhir Kumar Mittal, we welcome you onto the podcast, sir.
Thank you. And Om
So,
Shanti.
Om Shanti. And quick intro about Dr. Sudhir Kumar Mittal. He is a telecom industry veteran for more than 32 years of experience, currently working as Executive Vice President and Chief Architect at Reliance Jio, PhD and MBA from IIT, BE from Delhi University, and his area of interest is physics, maths, engineering, human behavior. So basically, he's a polymathic genius, and he's also a singer, plays musical instruments, speaker, poet. So a lot of things, Dr. Sudhir, you are doing. So before we jump to the main topic, so I'd like to understand more about you because you've been involved in so many different disciplines. How's been your journey, and what is the key finding that you have seen?
Okay. Thank you. My journey has been more out of the inquisitiveness in my nature, and that has been my forte right from my childhood. So, science and mathematics always used to attract me and used to generate a lot of curiosity in me. Although I enrolled in engineering during my graduation, but it kept on to excite me as I could understand the practical applications of the pure scientific concepts. While this all was going on, there was a parallel stream of intense spiritual practices happening at my home with my parents, with my family. So I ended up reading a lot of scriptures, chanting, singing devotional songs, and listening to the point of views of a number of saints, gurus, and guides. And I personally had a number of spiritual experiences myself, um, which naturally triggered the urge to correlate them with the scientific and mathematical phenomena I used to study in detail. Further, I personally believed that there can be only one God, which is the Supreme Soul, who is the Father of all souls. And then, obviously, due to the inquisitiveness, the question arose why there are so many conflicts in the name of religion and God, and why God cannot set everything right, why there cannot be love and harmony everywhere. And more so, when we all live on one earth, under one sky, breathing one air, drinking one water, taking energy from one sun, experience same days, nights, seasons, and are having the same composition of our body and blood. Science is same, knowledge is same, then what is the reason of such serious conflicts? And that was the genesis of my this varied interest, and at the same time triangulate all of them towards some kind of a linkage. And that all of this inspired me to go deep into the exploration of science and spirituality.
Thank you so much. So Dr. Sudhir, you talked about the spiritual aspect and the scientific aspect. So, uh, so let me put up this question to you. See, these science and spirituality, they are vastly different terms. as I could think in my mind. So science is all about continuously evolving, doing logical and imperial evidences, observations, and whereas spirituality is more like a faith experience. So for example, Brahma Kumaris have got what around 120 presence in 120 countries, more than million followers, but yet each follower has the different experience. On the contrary, if I look into the science, so hypothetically speaking, if I am to put two hydrogen atoms with oxygen, I'll get water. And if you also have the similar environment, you'll also get water. So that is where I see the divergent views in science and spirituality. So, what are your views on these two?
Yeah, so as rightly highlighted by you, science is more related to observations, logic, empirical evidence, mathematical proofs, and repeatability of the same observations. As you rightly said, that H2O will give H2O. On the other hand, spirituality, as the name suggests, is related to spirits or souls, what we feel or experience, our thinking patterns, our habits, our wisdom, our memory, our relationships, our behavior, our intuition, our predictions, and on the top of it, discovering and connecting with the Supreme Soul. And that's where, it gets very, very complex, too complex. So it's not a mathematical phenomena where all the time it is 1 plus 1 is equal to 2 or 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Because even if we see our own thinking pattern, many times in the morning, our view is something, and by the evening, our view changes to something else. So it's like soul. It's a living being as compared to normally the scientific phenomena which are there. So spiritual experiences may or may not be repeatable. Yes, sometimes they repeat, sometimes, and many times they don't. And there is a lot of unpredictability in human behavior. Out of a huge world population of more than 8 billion people, no two human beings are alike physically and mentally both. And still, there is some resemblance of a child with parents, siblings, and relatives. People living in different parts of the world do have specific physical as well as habitual traits. So, geography wise, also, this varies. So, there is a lot of diversity, and yet we are all humans with similar physiology. So, if I talk about science, then it is related to physiology, which is the same. But there are number of simple observations which tell us that both science and spirituality are linked and affect each other. Now I'll take a few examples. If we see from a biological perspective, science talks about brain, memory, nervous system, heart, and other body organs, which keep us active. We keep us alive, we keep us active. But spirituality talks about soul, mind, thoughts, intelligence, habits, sanskars or impressions on the souls, etc. But if we look at the impact of stressful, negative, waste, excessive thoughts on the body, it may lead to diseases like depression, heart attack, high blood pressure, etc. So what has happened? That the spiritual aspect of thinking in a certain manner is creating an impact on a biological body, or which is studied and repeatable through science, right? On the other hand, a happy and contented mind usually leads to a healthy body. That means the soul, the mind does affect the body, even though there is no direct connection visibly and physically, right? So I can't say thought is wired to my heart or whatever. So similarly, there is a widespread belief that our eating and drinking habits do impact our thinking pattern. As there is a saying, what we eat, so our mind becomes. So that means it's a two-way phenomena. What we think impacts our body, and what our body consumes impacts our thought. Now, this is about a biological phenomena. But let us take an example from physics. Newton's third law of motion states that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. This is very well known. Everybody understands this. If there are a set of pendulums, you just pull one pendulum, the last one will go, it will again come back and hit it, and then the first one will go. And that typically that experiment shows it working. But similarly, the spiritual law or the karmic law also states that what we do to others is what we get in return. This is very simple. So, and can be, very easily seen walking in the path. You just shout on somebody, the guy will shout back. You abuse somebody, the guy will abuse back. You smile for somebody, the guy will smile back, and so on. The karmic debt is always settled, even though the time of settlement may be immediate, short term, long term, or very long term, spanning across multiple lives. So there is a significant similarity in these two laws, the spiritual law and the physics, the Newton's third law of motion. Now I take another law from physics in the area of energy. That is the first law of thermodynamics, or the law of conservation of energy. Now that law states that energy can never be created nor be destroyed. It can only be transformed, like heat energy, kinetic energy, potential energy, etc. But the law of spirituality also states that souls or spirits are powerful energies which can never be created, never be destroyed, but the degrees of the souls may go up and down. Okay? Based on their degree, we label them as good soul, bad soul, pure soul, impure soul, angel soul, evil soul, etc. So again, we see there's a stark similarity in the law of physics and the law of spirituality. I take one more example. I take the second law of thermodynamics, and that states that the entropy or the chaos or disorderliness of the universe must always be increasing. Okay. Now, this is a well-known law. This is fine. Because even if you convert a particular energy to a different form, there is always a different leak of energy
Loss. Yes,
somewhere,
yes.
loss of
Right,
energy.
right.
So similarly, in spirituality, there is a talk of reducing degrees of souls or spirits always, whereby the negativity or disorderliness keeps spreading across the world and it keeps on increasing day by day. People are becoming more and more impulsive, impatient, and aggressive. And that pattern is increasing day by day. So this gives some initial perspective that there is a linkage between what physics and mathematics observe and what spirituality brings as an experience. So I think this is the initial perspective from my side.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sudhir. So basically, I will summarize for the audience. So you took four examples. One is around the Newton's third law, then the energy conservation and entropy, and it is all connected and complementary to each other. So basically, in nutshell, if I have to put that, spirituality and science, they are connected with single thread. And if we want to develop the holistic view onto the reality, we need to consider both the aspects. Like you rightly said, if it is karma in spirituality, right, there is a Newton's third law is here. Entropy is also followed here and in there. Probably the names are different, but the laws are pretty much same. And that is where you are trying to put the commonality between these two domains.
Absolutely, because these are the universal laws, and
Right,
science is not aloof, nor the spirituality. And
right.
these are the universal laws which are, general axiom, which are applicable in both the streams.
So the laws remains the same, but the terminology as per the domains gets changed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, building onto that, now we will go deeper into it, probably at a number level and physics and theorems. So you touched about that, the fact that the laws remains the same, right? So now I'll talk about some very well-known principles and theorems and something that we heard a lot in spirituality. So, for example, in spirituality, we see a lot of emphasis has been given onto the cycles, be it Mayans. They have the Mayans calendar, right? In Brahma Kumaris, they give a lot of emphasis onto this cyclic drama. Everything gets repeated and periodic in nature. And of course, Indian scriptures, they also talk a lot about it. So, how do science provides an explanation towards these cyclic phenomena?
All right. So I think that's where the interesting part of this research begins. And indeed, the spirituality talks about the cyclic patterns, where a lot of scriptures across the religions and beliefs do mention um, that history repeats itself. It's a common saying also many
Right.
times in our conversation. We also keep on saying to each other, I mean, whether it is UK or the USA, whosoever, but I mean, this is a very common saying, history repeats itself. Whatever goes always comes back. So these are common words. But obviously, when we talk about history and whatever goes always comes back, we are not talking about physical phenomena. We are talking about spirituality coming as a cycle. So somewhere in the depth of our hearts, it is imbibed that it is a cycle. Now, there is a belief that karmic debts are never pardoned, and there is a reverse repetition. So that means something you gave, it has to come back. So this also becomes a cycle. You do something, you get something. You do something, you get something. This is also cyclic. Third thing, you talked about Mayan calendar, and it was a very famous thing during 2012 because of some misrepresentation or misinterpretation of that specific date in December 2012, because Mayan calendar speaks about a cycle of about 5,000 years, where all the happenings of the world do repeat. So it was like interpreted as this day world is going to end and the cycle is going to repeat. But every transition is not like instantaneous. Everything is going well, and some fine day it's going to end, and then immediately next moment it's going to start afresh. So no. Similarly, Brahma Kumaris also talk about the cycle of 5,000 years, where the cycle of the world is going to repeat exactly the same way as the previous iteration. So this is what you also mentioned. Now, further, if I talk about the scriptures, they do talk about the cycles of Mahayug. So in the scriptures, Indian scriptures, Vedic text, etc. So they talk about Mahayug or Chaturyug, right, which is a combination of four eras of Satyug, Treta Yug, Dwapar Yug, and Kali Yug, right? And all of them together repeat in a cycle. So, so, so there is a chronology, Satyug, Treta, Dwapar, and Kali Yug, then again Satyug, and so on. So this cycle repeats, and that's what is mentioned in the scriptures. And during this, what happens? The degrees of the souls keep reducing across these eras, and they are accordingly called the Golden Age, Silver Age, Copper Age, and Iron Age, respectively. Right. So obviously, there used to be a saying, and many times people say India was like a golden bird. So, and that was referring to the golden age, and that's how it went. So from golden age, the things have come down to the iron age, and it's not like prehistoric iron age or that, but it's more like the degrees of the soul has come down. The disorderliness and the chaos keeps on increasing across these eras, similar to increasing entropy, like we just said, that law of thermodynamics. However, at the time of end of cycle, which is this four eras, the whole Chaturvedi, and the beginning of a new cycle, the omnipotent supreme soul, which is referred as God also, in many faiths, he refills the degrees of every soul and sets back the entropy level to the original one. And this way, the new cycle starts. So that means the whole scientific phenomena in which the entropy has increased, disorderliness has increased, and that it is increasing forever. But then there is a time when the new cycle is starting, where somebody who is very powerful, omnipotent, supreme, who comes and sets everything right back to the same entropy level as the beginning of a new cycle. So this is another cycle which is talked about in Vedic text. Then there is a well-known cycle. Everybody experiences it. There is also a talk of cycle of birth, childhood, youth, old age, death, and then rebirth. Right. So this cycle is also talked about in many religions, in many faiths. That it's people take birth and birth again. So they undergo the whole cycle of birth, childhood, youth, old age, and death, and so on. And this cycle goes on and on. Now, many leading psychiatrists, including Dr. Brian Weiss, have proven this pattern and the karmic account settlement across lives, right? Across births, with their hypnotic regression therapy on
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of thousands of people, right? So he has, famous books, Many Masters, Many Lives, and so on, where a lot of, hypnotic regression experiences have been accounted for, and how this pre-birth or many births ago, a particular moment, particular event affects somebody even today. So it's amazing to see how some humans, right from their early childhood, act like a master of certain skills of musicians, sportsmen, mathematicians, scientists, saints, etc., and become living prodigies. Child is just born, after just 1 year is showing signs of that greatness. Nothing special training has been given to the child. So this is sometimes suggested as an extension of their deep interest in that skill in their previous lives, which continues in their new life cycle. Right? This is another cyclic pattern. Now, if we have a look at the scientific principles of physics and mathematics, we do understand that anything infinite, anything perpetual is always cyclic or repeatable in nature.
Mm-hmm.
Something cannot be infinite or perpetual if it is not cyclic, if it is not repeatable. Even a straight line is considered as part of a large circle.
Correct.
And this is also true in the case of motions of the celestial bodies, which is our, main subject today. So, as per Newton's universal law of gravitation, all bodies do have a mutual gravitational force pulling them towards each other. So it's famous Newton's formula, right?
Correct.
G m1 m2 divided by r square. So depending on the interplay of these gravitational forces, celestial bodies do rotate on their axis and also revolve in circular or elliptical patterns in a cyclic manner. So that is all because of multiple gravitational forces acting on these bodies, or which are typically mutual in nature. Now, and they form obviously a cyclic manner because it is eternal. A practical example, evident, uh, which is evident normally of gravitational force in our day-to-day life, are the high tidal waves in the oceans due to gravitational pull from the moon on full moon nights. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has seen it. In fact, there is always a gravitational force, small or big, hidden or evident, across all the bodies, depending upon the mass and distance of the bodies. Now consider this. All human bodies have about 60 to 70% water content, less
Right.
or more, somewhere here, there. That means that there might be some impact of these gravitational forces on human lives. Because we have seen the ocean water is having high tides just one by the pull of one celestial body called moon.
Correct.
But then so many humans, so many living beings having 60 to 70% water content in their body and coming in contact with so many celestial bodies. So there might be some impact. And since the celestial bodies move in cycles, their
Right.
impact on human lives could also be cyclic in nature.
Cyclic.
Okay, so the impacting body is moving in cycles. So the impact also has to be cyclic.
Got it. Got it.
A whole stream of astrology studies the impact of planets on human lives. So I'll not go into depth of it, but there are people studying astrology. They say that the planetary position affects the human life. So the effect of small celestial cycles within the time frame of a day or year are clearly visible on human lives. Every day what happens within this year, what happens. These are small celestial cycles. But the effect of larger cycles within the time frame of hundreds or thousands of years is really difficult to understand and is a matter of research. And that's where our inquisitiveness has to flow on. All right.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sudhir. It was really helpful. So again, I'll try and summarize. Basically, you tried answering some of the very difficult questions in the hypnotic regression therapy and extraordinary skills that kids used to have, by the time they are born. So through these cycles, so basically there is a complete different stream of consciousness that people try and study and try and answer these questions which you beautifully just answered, that if we consider the overall cycles of spirituality into these psychiatric domain, we can answer those difficult questions as well. And then very important, I'll say the $1 million aspect that you brought in, that because the gravity is the most dominant force and it produces the orbital motion, the centripetal and centrifugal force. And because the celestial bodies are governed under gravitational bodies, and we as a human, we also have 70% of the water. That means we are also driven in a cyclic fashion, right? So I think that's beautifully you brought the scientific phenomena of gravitation to the human behavior aspect. And so I'll have a follow-up question on that, because this is getting really interesting here. Uh, you just established the fact that because there is a gravitation and celestial bodies, they maintain the orbital motion, and because we have the water as a part of our body, and that also experience gravitation. So we also experience the cyclic patterns. Now, we have seen in the recent uh, decade or something, that there is a large shift in the crime rates, the behavior patterns of the humans. Suddenly we see the countries are at war, they are going bankrupt, almost most of the countries are under debt. So how do we, or can we extrapolate the argument that you just posted, celestial bodies onto the human? Can we extrapolate and try and explain these shifts and patterns as well?
Yeah, so this is like a pure, spiritual uh, phenomena, and there are three important spiritual concepts to emphasize here and understand here. Why there is a whole degradation in human behavior, why crime is increasing, and what's really happening, why there is a behavioral change happening every day, and it is getting more and more exponential. So the first concept is that we all human beings are a combination of souls and bodies, right?
Okay.
When I'm speaking, I'm a soul inside my body and I'm doing my job. The souls are eternal and bodies are perishable. So when a body perishes, the soul takes birth in another body. So then what is the soul? The soul has three faculties, namely mind, intellect, and sanskar,
Hmm.
or the impressions on the soul. Sanskar is the impressions on the soul. So as the soul takes a new birth, it carries the sanskars or the impressions of the previous birth with it, right? Now the second concept, so this was the first concept, soul and body, and then we work together as a human being. The second concept is about karmic theory. This means that the actions performed by any human being relative to others does create an account between the two, right? It's a ledger created between the two souls. So this creates debit or credit entries and the debit or credit balance in the account. Many of the debits and credits get settled within the span of a particular life. Like I have given you 100 rupees, you give me back, it's all settled. I did something for you, you did something for me, all settled. But there are some which are not settled within that time frame. And as a part of sanskars, that debt is carried forward to the next life. So this is the second concept. Now the third concept is the systemic degradation of the degrees of the souls or the human beings as per the downward spiraling cycle of the Chaturyugi. So it's a systemic degradation. So we just talked about Chaturyugi, which is like Satyug, Tretayug, Dwapar and Kalyug, as a systemic definition, as a cycle, as a downward spiraling cycle. The degrees of the soul have to go down, right? So these are the three concepts. Now let's triangulate. Today's time is the end of Kalyug, which is towards the end of the current cycle. That
Okay.
means soul to soul karmic accounts have multiplied across so many births within the cycle, right? So current cycle, which was we started from Satyug, and today we are in Kalyug. That means majority of the cycle is over already, and souls have taken so many births, and the karmic accounts across these so many births have multiplied. Now, since the cycle is about to end, the accounts are getting fast settled, and people are not able to comprehend why is it happening in their current birth, right? I have no
Mm-hmm.
clue why it is happening, because I don't remember my previous births. I don't remember my debt. I don't remember what I did to a particular soul. So people are confused. What's happening? and it's happening very fast. During this process, negativity and suffering keeps on increasing due to karmic justice. Right? Somebody is suffering because maybe he did something wrong to others. This is karmic justice. This further fuels the negativity and enmity across people, and fresh accounts keep getting built. Due to this all prevalent negativity, the soul degrees or the soul energies have been reduced to almost nil. And this is the reason of people getting impatient, intolerant, and unaccommodating. As a result, the crime rates are increasing exponentially without any control. Now, as per the spirituality principle of cyclic repetition, at this time, the intervention from Supreme Soul does help everyone to refill themselves with the energies of peace, purity, love, and happiness, and to be ready for the next new cycle, starting again with Satyug or the Golden Age.
Right. So basically, Dr. Sudhir, if I summarize again, uh, how you just described everything. So souls are there, and under the souls we have faculties, and then there is a karmic theory, and then the systematic degradation. So basically, every soul, uh, when it has started its journey, although it is a circle, let's say the Satyug is the starting, and then it starts from there and it keeps on degrading, and finally it has reached to at its bottom when we say that. And because there are so many debts that we have from the past births, right? And as a result of that, all these negativity are getting infused exponentially to the society, and that is being the prime reason for this increased crime rates and behavioral shifts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. So in a sense, basically it is all circles, be it physics, be it spiritual, be it Maya, Mayan's calendar. So everything, it is all about circles, and we have to follow that circles no matter what. Okay, okay. Thank you so much. So again, because we have named this podcast as Cycles of Infinity, so again, I will keep my questions again around cycles only. So, uh, like we see, um, you established, you gave an example of moon, impacting us. And do you have anything to say about the Earth's motion? And because if moon can impact us, then Earth will impact us even more, right? The degree of impact will be higher. So does uh, human behavior or societal trends can also be explained by Earth's movement?
So excellent, natural progression to our discussion. I must compliment you. So moon is a smaller celestial body.
Correct,
If I
correct.
talk about Earth and Sun, like they are big ones, and Sun is the biggest as far as our
Solar
um,
system is
is
concerned.
concerned.
Yeah,
So let's talk about certain aspects of Earth. So there are different types of motions of Earth which affect the lives of human beings living here. The commonly ones which are known, very well known, are Earth's rotation on its axis and its revolution around the sun. And this is very well known, even a
right,
child. Let us recap quickly. The rotation of Earth on its axis is the main cause of formation of day and night.
right,
The the effect of day and night is very evident on the psyche of humans and all living beings in general, right? Day, night, we are affected by it. It can't ignore. So we are aware that majority of the nocturnal creatures do show a tendency of aggressiveness or a dangerous or negative behavior. Yeah, by the virtue of the fact that they are nocturnal. Majority of the humans have a huge affinity towards sunlight. People always go, they want to have sun bath, they want to move places where there's a bright light, sun gives energy. But many people develop depression or irritated behavior in the regions where there is no sun for months. Right? Somebody was telling me in Seattle, they have almost 6 months where there is a
Yeah, right.
less visibility of the sun, and people do get depressed, they get irritation and so much. I mean, they don't like this phase to continue. Similarly, if I talk about plants, they create food and oxygen in the daytime. And nighttime for humans or living beings are usually to take rest. So this is the impact of the rotation. Similarly, the Earth's revolution around the sun and its tilt on its axis by 23.5 degrees is the reason of formation of seasons. Again, the seasons do have impact on the adaptations, bodily behavior, habits, and nature of the living beings across different geographies of Earth. Right. So if we see animals living in colder region, their body gets adapted. So
Correct.
so is the almost some visible signs of humans. Their body also get adapted. But there are some other motions on Earth, apart from this rotation on the axis and revolution around the sun. There are other motions of the Earth, which scientists have discovered. For
Mhm.
instance, Milankovitch talked about three more cyclic motions of the Earth, namely eccentricity cycle, axial precession cycle, and obliquity cycle. Right? So I'll just uh, show you a visual. How does that look like? Is my screen visible?
Yes, yes.
So this was the first motion, which is Earth rotation. Day and night are forming, right?
Mhm.
And then this one, we are talking about the Earth's revolution around the sun, and there's a formation of seasons. If we see that Earth is tilted as well as is rotating, seasons are getting created as the Earth rotates because of the tilt, um, either the northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere, they get some season.
Right.
Now, this is the these are the some additional motions of the Earth which are defined by Milankovitch. So if I try to run this, then there are three orbital cycles. Um, First one is the changes in eccentricity. So as shown in this visual, the elliptical orbit of the Earth is actually changing its length of axis, right?
Mhm.
So major axis, so the overall the it is changing from a bigger eclipse to a smaller eclipse. So this is Earth's eccentricity change.
Mhm.
Then there is a axial precession in which we can see there is a wobble. So there is a wobble, and that is the axial precession. And then there is a obliquity change. So in the obliquity, the Earth's axis itself is wobbling, right? So these are the three cycles defined by Milankovitch. And as we can see that these are not the normally known motions of the Earth. And so just to summarize, during the first motion of eccentricity cycle, the orbit of the Earth does change its shape slowly over a number of revolutions from more elliptic to less elliptic and back. So the orbit width or the axis. The second motion, axial precession. In this, the rotation of the Earth on its tilted axis itself wobbles in a cyclic manner. So it is just the same behavior shown by a spinning top when the rotation is about to stop. So there is a,
Mhm.
in Hindi, it's called lattu. So when it's about to stop, it just, wobbles.
Right.
And the third one is the motion of obliquity cycle, where the Earth's tilt of 23.5 degree itself changes over a period of time, typically from 22.1 degree to 24.5 degree, and that's where. But lastly, there is another very important motion of Earth, which is called Absidal precession or perihelion precession or orbital precession. So I'll show a visual of that also. Let me share my screen again. Okay. So if we look at this, then we see that Earth is rotating around Sun in an orbit, and there is a rotation or the precession of the whole orbit itself, right?
Okay.
So this visual is showing the anti-clockwise precession, and this diagram is showing a clockwise precession.
Okay.
So this is another motion of the Earth. Now this is very important because it links with a number of other faiths, scriptures, belief, or scientific calculation, right? So here, what is happening in this apsidal precession or perihelion precession is that the whole orbit of the plane of the Earth is revolving around the Sun itself, moves a bit during every cycle of revolution. So Earth takes one revolution by the time it has changed. It has
Okay.
So this precession takes a full cycle of complete 360-degree rotation of the orbital plane. So the cycle is what? Cycle is like this whole thing is moving and then coming back to the same position,
Same position.
right? So this is the cycle. And this is a very, very long cycle. It's not a short one. Now, each of these additional cyclic motions of the Earth do impact lives of humans and all living beings in a cyclic manner, right? So these are, I would say, I would like to touch upon that these are the kind of differently discovered motions of Earth, which are not known normally to people, and they do affect the lives of humans. They do affect the spirituality and in cycles.
So, Dr. Sudhir, if I've understood it correctly, so basically, Milankovitch, you talked about four principles from Milankovitch, again, around the cyclic pattern. One was around is that the orbital shape, the geometrical shape that Earth has, it has the elliptical shape, but over the time, it changes, and it becomes closer to the circle, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah, that's right.
Okay. And that is one you talked about. And then other was the axial tilt, wherein Earth is tilted at 23-degree. And you said that it also changes with time. That means it is also cyclic, right? It has its own period. After that, this tilt will change,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then you said that, there is a wobble that when Earth that has also cyclic pattern. And lastly, you said that like the orbital plane of the Earth, it completes the 360-degree view around Sun, right? Uh, that is how you have explained. Now, my question is little deeper because you talk a lot about Brahma Kumaris philosophy, and uh, my question or my check with you is, whenever the orbital motion of Earth uh, goes closer to the circular motion, right? So I assume the seasonal variation will reduce, right? So because in eclipse there are two foci, right? And in a center is nothing, but when these two foci meets, it becomes a circular, right? So that means the circular is more stable position wherein we see less seasonal variations. In fact, I did some simulation on ChatGPT as well for our viewers. I'll put that link into the description, wherein I checked that if Milankovitch simulation we can draw using ChatGPT means that if Earth's orbit completely becomes circular and the tilt is being reduced and wobble is also reduced, right? So it says that the seasonal variation will go down significantly, and there will be no extreme weathers, and there will be new polar caps because the tilt is changing, and there will be stable ocean currents. Now, this a particular simulation result, if I correlate with Brahma Kumaris, what they generally, how they describe about, especially about Satyug, and you also said that, this is the end of the cycle and very soon we will have a new cycle beginning. And plus, we also seeing the climate deterioration, the polar caps are melting at an exponential pace. So does all these points come together and say that because there is a new cycle, there will be new polar caps, and when Satyug will come, there will be no or absolutely almost nothing seasonal variation, and that is what generally BKs keep on referring when they describe Satyug.
Yeah, so I think these are the natural and very interesting conclusions or inferences we try to draw once we study these motions of the Earth. And I mean the Earth's rotation on its axis in 24 hours and the revolution around the sun in 1 year or about 365 days is well known. And we have already discussed the impact of these two cycling motion on human lives. But as you are rightly saying, if the tilt is not there, right? Because we see Milankovitch described about wobbling of this tilt also.
Correct.
If the tilt is not there, then the season has to be uniform, right? Because tilt only is creating the seasons as Earth is rotating around the sun. So that means if it wobbles, the tilt wobbles, that means there is going to be
Variation.
some change in the human lives in a cyclical manner. Now, as far as Milankovitch cycles are concerned, let's talk about more lengths. So rotation length is 24 hours, revolution length is 365 days. But if I talk about the Milankovitch cycles, the length of these cycle motions are specified by Milankovitch. The eccentricity cycle spans about 100,000 years. And the axial precession cycle spans about 26,000 years. And the obliquity cycle spans about 41,000 years. So, Milankovitch cycle contribute a predictable amount of variation to the Earth's climate over these time frames. For instance, he does mention that the ice age repeats with every iteration of eccentricity cycle of
Mhm.
100,000 years. So although later the ice age repetition was also associated with the obliquity cycle of 41,000 years, but the important point here is to note is that the ice age is going to be formed again and again as per this celestial cycle,
Mhm.
and that is certain. All right, so that is the important point. 41,000 or 1 lakh is not important at this stage, but we'll come back. So the important thing is that ice age is going to be formed again and again, and that is certain. But as we see today's world, human actions themselves have been the main factor of global warming and melting of the glaciers. That means humans do tend to behave in a certain manner as per the demand of the cyclic phase to comply to the overall predetermined phenomena, right? So the ice age has to form again, it has to melt, form again, melt. But the humans are acting to comply to that cyclic demand, right? So they are creating lot of global warming actions. So this is very interesting conclusion to connect the motions of the earth and its impact on spirituality or psyche of the souls, right? The cycle is defined, and that cycle, as it moves on, it impacts the psyche of the souls to behave in a certain manner to degrade or increase the entropy. Now, this is about Milankovitch. But if I talk about the Absidal precession cycle or the perihelion precession cycle, in which the whole orbit rotates, right? Earth's orbit rotates. In this case, Einstein applied his general theory of relativity to derive a formula for Absidal precession in radians during one period of revolution. So, which is like defined by epsilon is equal to 24 pi cube a square divided by t square c square 1 minus e square, right? Which is like having variables, the semi-major axis or the time period of rotation, velocity of light, and eccentricity of the orbit. Now, why I mentioned about this formula is that it becomes very interesting to calculate the time to complete the full 360-degree rotation or precession cycle of the Earth's orbit and correlate its impact on human lives. So, um, so next I'll uh, give some details about how do we um, how do we calculate and how do we triangulate these particular lengths, and specifically for this orbital rotation, and how do we calculate from this. Before that, if you have any observation or any comment, you can. Else, I'll proceed to the calculations of this orbital precession.
Yeah, so I think one comment I want to make, and it's really fascinating, wherein you basically started from oneness. When I asked your journey, you basically talked everything about oneness, one God, one creation. And now you brought this point beautifully onto the table, saying that it is the interplay of human physics cycles, celestial bodies, and we sort of also knowingly, unknowingly, participating into that circular motion, right? We are themselves, responsible for the polar caps melting, and so thereby um, giving a push to the complete cycle of Milankovitch, what you just described. So probably in some other discussion, we will try and cover the free will, the deterministic model, and the years that Milankovitch has mentioned. Probably we'll cover that aspect little later. But having kept that aside, you basically brought the complete oneness, right? So we are also part of this overall schema of things, and human celestial body. So it is the complete interplay that you, I think, just described, if I'm not wrong.
Absolutely. So, absolutely. So I'll just move ahead and
Yeah.
try to triangulate the um, four different aspects of this cycle, which is like a longer cycle of where everything repeats. So first thing we already talked about is Mayan calendar, which is having a length of 5,000 years. The implication on human lives is there is a full repetition of human events every 5,000 years after a brief destruction. Similarly, second triangulation point is Brahma Kumaris duration of Chaturvedi, or one cycle of four eras of Satyug, Treta Yug, Dwapar Yug, and Kali Yug. And the length here again has been specified independently, no relation with Mayan calendar, but independently as 5,000 years. And the implication on human lives is there is a full repetition of human events as per Chaturvedi every 5,000 years after a brief destruction. And again, major religions like Hinduism, Christianity, Islam do talk about Vinash, destruction, and Qayamat, respectively. Right. So this is a fact. Now, third point of triangulation is Indian Vedic texts talk about length of this Chaturyugi as 4.32 million human years, right? 4.32 million years. And the Vedic text also talks about the conversion of these human years, deity years or Devic years, right? So that means this 4.32 million is human years, and the Vedic text talks about the deity years or the Devi years, and how do we convert them to each other, right? So there is a conversion factor in which this 4.32 million human years are in this cycle of 4 yugas or 4 eras can be converted. Now, how do we convert that? According to Brahma Kumaris, there are 108 top deities who take 8 births during Satyug. So that means there is a conversion factor of 8 into 108, right? 108 top deities taking 8 births, 8 into 108. And so that is the conversion factor between humans and deity years. Now, if we divide the Vedic Chaturyugi age of 4.32 million human years with this factor of 8 into 108 or 864, then the resultant Chaturyugi age is 5,000 years. So we get the exact magic number. You just divide 4.32 divided by 8 divided by 108, you get 5,000 years. So which matches with that of Mayan calendar and Brahma Kumaris theories, right? So many people do ask this question, and personally, many have asked from me that Indian Vedic scripture is talking about 4.32 million and you are talking about 5,000. How is it possible? So the key is the human year and Devi year, and that's what is mentioned in the Vedic text also. Now, the fourth point of triangulation is the science, right? This all is spiritual scriptures and all. Now, let us correlate with the Einstein's formula of Absidal precession, which I just talked about. After calculating using this formula, and I did that calculation myself, we get a figure of 33.8 million years for the Earth's orbit to complete one full 360-degree precession. This is also a big number. But if we again bring a constant conversion factor of 8 into 8 into 108 or a number of 6912, the figure of 33.8 million years reduces to a number called 4891.11, right? 4,891.11 years, which is almost 5,000 years.
Okay.
It's a magic, right? It's like this is the triangulation we are trying to get. We are reaching to certain conclusions. So with all 4 different routes, we reach to a figure of 5,000 years, which is the cycle for repetition of all human events. That means the human behavior and circumstances will naturally tend towards destruction of all negativity and polluting entities and bring a whole new era of positivity, purity, peace, and happiness, which is nothing but the golden age.
Okay. So basically, Mayans, one of the intelligent civilization, and the Brahma Kumaris, they all come to this magic figure of 5,000 years, and that you also, when you did your calculation, you also arrived at to the same number. Okay, that's fascinating. Thank you, Dr. Sudhir, sharing this multifaceted view. I've actually, you have answered all my questions with all the, calculations and everything. So I have pretty much done. The only thing that lastly I want to ask you is that we talked about oneness, we talked about cycles in physics, spirituality, how it answers some of those paradoxes which remains there for ages in different disciplines. Now, uh, how do this extensive holistic knowledge, especially what you just demonstrated, right? It brings uh, a better perspective to the society, how it is beneficial for the society. That is the million-dollar question. That is the last question, I would have for you.
Right. And thanks for asking that, because what matters is, out of all this, jugglery and research,
Correct.
what do we get finally? So there are certain actions. One thing is for sure that we need to continue in-depth research with both the angles of science and spirituality to keep unfolding the deep linkages and the unknown secrets. So whatever we have talked about is, I would say, a tip of the iceberg, and it's just tried to scratch some surface, some unknowns. But as concluded earlier, the Earth's cyclic motions are going to bring up new cycles, which are going to completely change the human lives for good. As we as humans need to align with the same by transforming ourselves towards purity and positivity and finish all the karmic debts and make sure that no new karmic debts are created. That is for the self transformation. Now, if we do align to the Earth's cyclic motion and what cycles demand, we do comply to it, then this is going to being a there's going to be systemic change. So it's systemic, right? The whole system behaves like that. It's going to be systemic change in the society behavior, and the society could transform to a completely harmonious, loving, and a positive society and a pure society. And that's the change we intend to see in near future. And but the first change starts from us ourselves, who are now a bit more informed that we are naturally tending to comply to this change. And that's what is going to be the beginning of the golden age and a happy age, and a peaceful age. Thank you.
Right, right. So again, you touched multiple aspects. You talked about karmic philosophy, that we should abide by it, and of course, our motions should also be aligned with the celestial motions, what is being demonstrated, and with that, you brought in the aspect of the societal systematic change and the self transformation aspect. That is what I understand. Uh, I think that's all for today in this particular episode. It was highly enriching, Dr. Sudhir, talking to you. You shared a lot of different views, holistic views, and covering multiple domains and touching almost all the critical aspects of the human, and of course onto the science as well. In fact, you also talked about a new research area as well. So it was lovely talking to you. And thank you so much. We will cover some of the aspects that you brought in around the deterministic model of consciousness, free will, and years of Milankovitch, probably in some other episodes. Thank you so much, Dr. Sudhir, for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure for me. Thank you.